and this is information, Superintendent.
Mr. Callahan.
You want me to come up there?
Absolutely.
All right, cool.
I told Mr. Callahan this is his meeting tonight because Miss Huff is on vacation.
Chairman Tucker, board members, Mr. Tucker, I could read this to you, but you have it. You already know all the questions that are surrounding that. If I had answers to what we were going to look like come September 9th, and that's after you vote on the calendar, should we be able to do that, then you never can tell. But we do have three scenarios. I mean, obviously, we don't know if we're going to be in phase 3 or we're going to be out of phase 3. Obviously, if we're out and restrictions are set up as far as social distancing as a moot point, then we're back to normal. And that's where we'd like to be. We do not have any idea if that's going to be the case. And the big thing with any of the other plans is, if you're in still one of the three phases, is that you're going to have to social distance. So that's where we came up with a hybrid plan. And we have looked at every scenario possible. We've looked at going into AM, splitting it with the PM. We looked at going 4 days a week. Looked at going 2 days a week. Looked at going block 1, block 2. You name it, we've looked at it. Okay? And one of the guiding forces in most of this is transportation. If social distancing guidelines are still in place, we can't be more than 1 to every other seat on the bus. So you're looking at a maximum of 15 kids on a bus. So the hybrid plan is the only feasible way right now that we can get kids here if we're still in phase 3. Phase 2 and phase 3 have a moot point as far as considerations as far as school is concerned, because the social distancing is still in place. And that's the driving factor on that. And the driving factor with the school division is bus transportation. Let's say we go back to phase 1 and we're on lockdown. Then we're going to go all virtual, like we were at the end of the year. We don't know. So we're trying to keep all avenues open and trying to come up with the best split if we have to go with hybrid, and the best virtual if so. And I heard a lot of the public comments said, that things we're not educators, we can't teach, we can't get it. Okay, well, the webcam is not going to be centered on kids in the classroom so you can see exactly what they're doing if they're getting in trouble. The instructional piece is not going to be an all-day webcam event, okay? We're going to give you a chunk of instruction, and per class, per subject. Will all subjects get covered every day? Not at elementary level. Will all subjects get covered every day if you're on a block schedule at high school? Yes. But I mean, they're not going to be recording live for an hour and a half because you're not going to sit there and teach for an hour and a half nonstop without the kids doing some work, without the kids moving, without the kids interacting. And that's what that part comes into. They're going to be using their instructional devices to post. And that's going to be what the kids are going to be seeing. They're going to be seeing the teacher doing this or writing on the chalkboard or slash the tablet that they're having in their hands. So, and we're going to do dry run scenarios for all of these. We're going to have the schools come in. High school's already done it. Middle school's doing this week. All three elementaries will go next week on exactly how it will look and how it's going to be set up so the teachers are comfortable with how we're going to present it to the students. And then we can communicate that to the parents and to the students. And I think, is it the best case scenario? I think it's the best that we can provide at this time. If we have to go with that hybrid plan, we're still looking at how we're going to do splits. That hasn't been determined yet, of which kids will come on a Monday, Tuesday, which kids will come on a Thursday, Friday. There's also certain stipulations of kids that may come more than 2 days a week based on if they have an IEP, based on if they have internet service. So all those things have been taken into consideration, and we're going to provide as best we possibly can for every student. I'll be happy to answer any of the questions on any of the information that you see that you have in your packet, considering that, but just know it's still a work in process.
So if a parent wants their child to go to school 5 days a week, they just can't.
I would hope every parent wants their child to go to school 5 days a week, but there's going to be a hierarchy of needs that we're going to have to go by, because it just can't be a free-for-all. We would love that to happen, and let's hope 2 months from now we're not talking about it.
So will you have an application process for those?
Not necessarily an application process, but there'll be some kind of communication between the school division and those parents, of students on that list. And I don't know exactly how that's going to look yet. We haven't formed a letter or a waiver or anything like that, but those types of situations will be handled on a case-by-case basis.
Mr.
Oh.
Callahan, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, some of the comments, it sounds like there's a concern overall, like with being able to go to these, I guess, remote class sessions. I mean, can we, and maybe you guys are thinking about all this, because I know it's all new, but like it might, you know, be feasible to do like taped instruction, like modules that they can access and get the instruction. You know, then they get, you know, credit for watching the video, watching the instruction, have a little quiz at the end of the video.
Sure.
That they learn the skill set.
Not every lesson is going to be recorded
Okay.
at live. I mean, some teachers will say, all right, you know, this week I'm going to post out 2 tutorial videos on this, and that's what I want the kids to watch. Do they have to tune in at a certain time during the day? No. It's going to be on a week-by-week basis. Some teachers may choose to do that more on their classroom and then another. We're not backing anybody into one certain mold of how they're going to provide that instruction. We're just giving the tools to know that they can go to live, which will prevent them from having to teach the material twice. And that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to have to burden the teachers with having to do 2 different jobs.
Yeah, and that's why I offered taped instruction, because then you just do it it's one and done, and then maybe you can share that among all the
Yeah,
teachers.
and we're looking at, you know, there's going to be a limit on, you know, the Zoom conferencing and the Google Meets, and because they're not going to let us have it for free forever. They're going to give us time limits. So, I mean, we're going to be constrained by, you know, those limits as well.
From what I hear from the parents is some of their schedules, if they can't, you know, if they're on, you know, working Monday through Friday, you know, 8 to 4.
Correct.
They may not be able to be there to get their kid into this classroom session.
And that
And they may be more of a nighttime family
Right.
where they're like, hey.
And that
do
can
it
happen
way.
because the recessions that we're going to do are going to be recorded.
Okay.
And then they'll be posted. So if a kid can't log on because the parent's not there, or because the babysitter doesn't know how to do this or that, and they're a younger child, then, you know, that stuff is going to be available later on in the evening.
The other thing,
Multiple routes.
the image that we have out there right now are the packets and the asynchronous learning, okay? That will change to synchronous learning. So in other words, if you were the students, you would be interacting with me as the teacher as well, okay?
I mean, nothing was perfect when we did it in the spring.
Yeah.
You know that.
So-
we've looked at what worked and what didn't work.
Right.
And there is definitely going to be more teeth in actual new learning.
The other thing,
come fall.
we are probably going to be one of the more advanced divisions in the Commonwealth, thanks to Mr. Allman and his team's effort. We have met with Frontier, we've met with Chantel and with Lumos, working out now a plan to the cost to make sure about 98% of our students will have access to internet, and that is a high quality access to internet. And so therefore we can broadcast live through Zoom, actual, like I said, exchange of classes. And regardless of whatever plan we have, if we go back full time, we'll still offer the virtual program for those parents who feel it's safer to keep their children home. So they'll have that option as well.
Because you're going to have some. I mean, they're just scared, you know, whether they're sick at home as themselves as parents, or, you know, the kid is susceptible to, you know, catching anything and everything out there.
And hopefully we'll be able to pick up some homeschool students because there'll be no cost versus the programs they're currently paying for. I think maybe, if it's okay with you all, that we do a little Zoom lesson maybe next board meeting so you can participate and see what it's like.
Or at least we record one of the ones we're doing in the next 2 weeks so you can see
what we're
how it's
doing.
gonna go.
Yeah, that'd be a good.
I
You
think
can
that's great.
experience. Yeah, because they've already tried the high school and it was successful. Mr. Allman, I hadn't seen it, but just what he had said. So
So we'll have 4 more opportunities to get that and show you guys.
Yeah.
Is it going to be perfect the first time? No, but I mean, and the teacher's going to be like stressed about it? I'm sure some will. You know, even the most technology, you know, advanced teachers, it's going to be new to them in some manners.
Couple
So,
questions, comments I have, and you all may have not heard, you know, the governor opened Virginia in different phases, depending on location. Is there any talks about that to schools?
yes.
this is the dilemma we are in as superintendents and as board members of school divisions. Is they talk a lot about a thing called a variance suddenly, all right? And so you can apply for a variance. What occurred, VDH collects the plans. We have to turn in a plan for health, and we have to turn in a plan for instruction. VDOE is required to collect the health plan. They are not signing off on it, all right? So with that being said, you can apply for a variance. And the variance, so if you have only space for 13 kids on the bus, you might be able to put 15 on there. However, with that being said, okay, is that here's what you have. You have Virginia School Board Association saying you need to follow the guidelines, okay? You got VAS saying you need to follow the guidelines. You have the American Association of School Managers, you better follow the guidelines, okay? And you have our own attorney and other attorneys that are saying, VACOR, which is our insurance, saying you need to follow these guidelines. If not, you as a board then assume the liability for going beyond the guidelines because those are the base value. Now, there's currently talk in Southwest Virginia from Tazewell County and some others, and some of the rural coalition we're members of, to pass some resolutions, to talk to see if we can get VDH. Tomorrow, okay, at 8:30, we have our superintendent's webinar with some of the people from VDH so we can explain this about the buses. Most divisions in Region 6, which runs from here to Henry County, are all planning only on a 20%, which is 1 day a week for students. We were able to work at our schedule because our buses don't have huge numbers on them, a lot of our buses, that we can probably do 2 days a week and still stay within those guidelines, all right? And so Mountain View and Mr. Trude have already met because you have to balance your classes with who's on the bus. And so that helps decide to split, because if you suddenly just take a class and split it, you might find more kids in that one class on this one bus and less on the others. So it's pretty involved going through the entire process. Plus,
Are we taking households into
that's
consideration?
so we have the older kids.
Working parents?
Yes,
Wanna
so
answer that question?
Different last
yes,
names, you name
yeah,
it.
we've been trying to also bounce. Also, if there's an older child in there, they can maybe babysit the younger one. All right, and so this is going to be hand scheduling versus putting it into computer and let it happen and go from there. And then we're trying to work with Covington as well. We're also trying to work with JRTC so we can incorporate that all together. And I'm proud, and you guys are going to Fleck. They're way down the road, okay? As we start getting into the nitty gritty, and hopefully we'll be September 9th. We selected that date on purpose to go later. Maybe we're out of phase 3, and then at that point the only thing we have to really worry about is those students who don't feel safe to come back. We can offer a full virtual program.
Has there been any discussion, this is my last question, that I have, and I've gotten this question as well, kindergartners, first graders learn very differently than a high school student like Abby being able to do Zoom. Is there discussion, consideration for that, and the amount of time they'll spend in the school? Because it's kind of hard to start school in kindergarten virtually.
It is. Every kid and student are going to have orientation days where they're going to meet with a teacher and sit down and go over, how do we use this? How do we do that? How can I best, work with my child? Everyone's going to have a device. I went down to junior kindergarten, early childhood will have tablets. Now, does that mean that it's going to be the best possible scenario for them? No. If we're going to start phasing in more and more into class, that's what we're going to start with first.
And this is one of the mandates not met by the state. Mr. Vaughn, how many kindergarten classes do we have? 6? 8, 10?
10 JK.
All right, so if we divided that up, we would need 10 more teachers to cover that. And so and that's the case, is where the state has got to come up with that additional funding, okay? And so even if it's for a year or a 2-year period, the CARES Act funding won't cover that, come even close to covering it, okay? And so that's the issue. It's fine to say that to everybody. Go ahead and divide your classes, okay, and bring the kindergarten kids in more, which we want to do, and we recognize they need more instruction on FaceTime to get started, but the staffing's there. And so some school divisions are saying, well, we're not going to teach art next year, we're not going to teach music, we're not going to teach band, and we're going to have those instructors teach that. I don't want to do that. Our kids need exposure to all those other subjects as well. So again, we keep playing this back and forth.
Question, what are they going to do? We're still planning on teaching everything.
Yeah.
It's going to look a little different. You have to be a little creative.
We
have 10 kids going on the jungle gym during recess at one at a time, So it's just.
We encourage everybody to submit their ideas. If they got ideas out there we think may work, give them one. We got one today from Mr. Spangler that is a pretty good idea that we hadn't thought of till today. So if we got ideas out there, students as well, that may work. We're a pretty good brain trust, but all ideas out there are certainly welcome. And our goal is to get all our kids back in school after September 9th.
So going back to what Sherman said initially, our issue is with the buses, getting all the kids
Buses and space.
in space. Okay.
In school.
So,
I mean, classroom, if you got 25 kids in a classroom and your classroom's, less than 400 square feet, then you
okay.
can't be 6 feet apart.
Okay, because I was gonna maybe suggest having a waiver for parents to sign off. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna drive my child to school. But I know we have to provide transportation, but if they sign a waiver.
And we'll get, this is on down the way a little bit, but we are, looking at putting out a school messenger survey to hit every student instead of, all right, this is online, please click on that and go. But this is actually going to go as a robocall to them with a survey about transportation needs, how many of you are going to want their kids to come full-time, how many will go virtual, and then we're still kind of deciding on the child care component, how many people would be severely stressed about that part.
And the other thing, I think parents and we all need to look at is there's risk, low risk, medium risk, or high risk. So if I'm a parent right now, I may not put my child on the bus. I might take them in because that's going to be low risk if I can do that. And maybe I do take another child with me rather than be on that bus. Because if you're really looking at the medical information, is that in an enclosed area, okay, with little ventilation, the chances of that spreading are much greater than it is in an open area with a big room or outside. All right, and so that may be a good thing as we look down the road and we look at circumstances versus low risk versus medium risk or high risk. And so, if we're all in the cafeteria at the high school with 150 kids in there, that's a high risk situation. Because the ventilation's poor, it's a low ceiling, we got a whole bunch of people in there without masks, and so the opportunity for that to spread. Low risk is in a classroom where instead of having 25, we put 13 in there and we work that way. Or we hire additional staff and we use the space we have available.
So could we move some of our classes outside?
Sure.
To kind of spread them out?
Absolutely. But again, that's not a full-time solution because of weather. So if you decide to put 20 out there one day and the next day you have 10 and 10 because you got to come back in. I mean, VDH even recommended we keep all our bus windows open all the time. All right, now maybe in paper that looks pretty good, but we've had some really nice rainstorms here. I could see the buses going down the road with the windows open, or suddenly when the temperature is down to 15 or 20 degrees. So we have to be realistic as well.
So with some of our CARES money, could we purchase some tents to set out logistically around the campuses of each school, so they would have shade and they would have some protection from the weather?
That's a possibility. All possibilities right now is worth looking at.
Some places, Callahan has some shelter, Sharon has some shelter. Middle school, Mountain View, not quite as much. Alleghany has shelter. So.
Go back 2 years. What was our main concern in 2 years ago?
Kids safe.
Yes. And so now you're trying to balance that out as well, trying to keep kids safe with that. It's like a very interesting dilemma.
Yeah.
A lot of questions, and most of them are,
Are good questions.
Yeah, warranted.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
When does our plan have to be submitted to the state?
15 days prior to the first day of school.
Let's worry about it in a month.
Well, it's going to change 3 more times within a month or two, so.
Well, the one day they had the meeting going on up here, I was listening to a webinar, I had to come down twice and change things they were doing in the middle of the meeting.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I think you're just kind of spinning your wheels right now. I
Well-
think you guys have a good plan, but I think as far as it's kind of a wait and
Exacts and
see.
particulars, yeah. I mean, we need to go ahead and get a kind of a good scenario on the splits because that's going to take some time. But other than that, as far as, any other particular,
The only other thing I've
make sure the instructional piece is there.
asked Mr. Truitt to look at is that we go to an elementary run and a secondary run. That may help us as well because we only need like 22 buses for an elementary run. And that would give us some extra buses if we have to go far out or split like a run down in Clifton because they may have 40 people on the bus. And then, so we'd have to stagger. So maybe elementary would start at 7:55 or something. I'm picking an arbitrary time. Please don't hold me to that. And then maybe high school starts like at 8:30 or 9:30, somewhere in there.
Divisions do that.
Yeah.
currently.
That might help us with more buses, that we have some flexibility in there. And then we may have some flexibility, then that would allow us to bring in our special needs students more or individual cases that are behind.
With your staggered schedule, parents driving their students, it would help them as well.
Yeah, yeah. So we're looking at that right now.
At the same time.
Yep.
And get enough traffic
Yeah.
off of.
Well, the other thing is a simple thing like this. We have to screen our kids every day. Do we do it before they get on the bus? You know, do we wait till they get to school? If we do it before they get on the bus, we almost have to put an 8 on every bus. And so, you know, again, like Mr. Wright said, until things work out in a month, you know, we have ideas on a whole bunch of things. But as this starts firming up, then we'll know which one to do. The crew has been awesome as far as working together and coming up with scenarios. So
We will have to take temperatures as they go into the building, or is
well, the temperature's not required.
daily screening?
Yeah, yeah, just required daily screening.
Okay. So that would be a 10 as you go, before you go into the school?
Not necessarily.
So in the office area maybe?
Could be the-
That could be waiting till they get in the classroom unless they feel sick.
Yeah,
I mean, there's, once
Well,
again, lots of scenarios.
Once again, we're jumping the gun here a little bit.
I'm not taking anybody's temperature yet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're hoping that by the time, we're hoping in a month and a half or whatever, that we won't have to take temperatures, and that'll just be, glad we were prepared for it, but now we don't have to worry about it.
correct.
We'll have the virtual piece for kids that still are not able to
Yeah.
come, so that, I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the
They're just
virtual, that virtual piece will be
But
awesome.
there are
Yeah,
some.
yeah, yep. Again, I want to thank you
Yes,
all.
sir.
I assume that you guys have got a contingency when this thing changes, too. We're talking about how fluid it is. Say we start in phase 2 or phase 3, and then 3 weeks later, we're open.
Perfect, great.
So we would have a contingency to say, okay, this is where we're at now, but we're gonna change this in within 5 days.
It comes out on Thursday, the guy that says you can go wide open, and announcement will be made Thursday night, we're starting Monday, boom. So, I mean, something simple as that. Yes, we're definitely shifting when they let us.
And it can go the other way around. Suddenly, you have 3
Go back to all
cases
virtual.
and in one building. So do we close all the other buildings down, or do we, you know, just close one building down and you know, for a week to get it cleaned up and, you know, they do the contract tracing and all that.
Yep, 14-day building shut down.
Yep. So, we got a lot ahead. We have a lot done. We have a lot ahead. We'll be patient, like Mr. Wright said, keep looking and keep our prayers in there that things get better.
And if you guys get comments, suggestions, recommendations, questions.
Yeah, please send them. I was fun.
My most educated guess, which,
The last email you sent me, I didn't read the final word up there in your opening.
Best.
Yes, I just saw that just now.
Yeah, and the best.
No, that's fine.
Or best.
Thank you.
Pam?
Okay, thank you.